Hello again, fellow audiophiles. I am Wave Theory, and in today's video, we are going to take a look at the Sonore ultraRendu network audio streamer. This is a $999 US plus the cost of a power supply, which we'll talk about in the video, unit from Sonore here. I have two of these actually. I have a hardware version 1.0 and a hardware version 1.3. I initially bought the version 1.0 with a physically matching uptone audio LPS1, UltraCap LPS1 power supply from eBay. Got it used from eBay back in about May and used that a lot and really liked it, which is a little bit of a spoiler here, and was going to run a review of that, but then I figured, you know what, it's probably smarter to actually review the latest version of the ultraRendu, which is the 1.3. So I reached out to Small Green Computer and asked them if they would be interested in sending me a version 1.3 for review. And they did so at, a fair discount. So I still paid a chunk of change for this, but thanks Small Green Computer for the discount. So other than offering that discount, Small Green Computer has made no attempt to influence my opinion on this piece in any way. So all thoughts that you are about to hear are mine and mine alone. All right, so we'll go ahead and do shameless self-promotion, and then we'll come back on the other side and we will talk about the ultraRendu.
Hi, I'm Wave Theory's human companion, and he wants you to know that your support of this YouTube channel helps keep the reviews coming. If you enjoy Wave Theory's honest, thorough style, then make sure to like this video, subscribe to the channel, and check out the links in the description below to sign up for the Patreon or send him a tip through PayPal. All right, enjoy the musings.
The theme of this review is really going to come down to do one thing and do it well. The ultraRendu is a pretty dead simple device in terms of what it does. It does one thing. Okay, it accepts an audio stream over your local area network, and then it spits it out as a USB audio output. That's it. Now, it has some software options on it, which we'll discuss further, that make it compatible with several different streaming protocols and different software players. But in terms of what it does in its basic existence, is it's a LAN audio stream in and a USB audio stream out. Okay, so it does one thing, essentially. And does it do it well? Yes, it does. And I'm going to spend the rest of the review video here unpacking that. I'm also going to talk about the differences between the hardware version 1.0 and the hardware version 1.3. The 1.3 is the version that you can currently buy brand new. So if you click on the link below in the description to buy this product, it's not an affiliate link because I'm not aware that Sonore or Small Green Computer have an affiliate program. They didn't mention one to me. Okay, but if you use that link to go buy one of these brand new, it will be hardware version 1.3. You still can find version 1.0s floating around on the used market for pretty reasonable prices anymore. I've seen them around $450 to $500 US. And at that price, it's a really good value. So I am going to talk a little bit about both, about the sound of both of these units out there for that reason that I just said right there. So digging in a little bit deeper on this, let's come back to the pricing that I mentioned there in the intro, that the ultraRendu is basically a $1,000 US piece. Okay, but it does not come with a stock power supply per se. If you order this from Sonore.com, and I'll put that link down there, they have some options in their drop-down menu to bundle this with a power supply. This is a bring your own power supply device right here. It accepts DC inputs between 6 and 9 volts, and it needs a 1 amp continuous, 2 amp peak current source power supply with that. So you really need to bring your own. And so you need to add into the cost of buying this unit. It's $999 plus the cost of whatever power supply you want to provide. Now, I guess, as I was about to say, if you order this from Sonore.com, they have a drop-down menu that has a few different power supply options in there that are a little bit on the pricier side. I didn't have any of those. I didn't try any of them, but they are there as options if you want them. If you order this from smallgreencomputer.com, they kind of offer as a stock basic option, if you will, their $189 little linear power supplies, which kind of look like this. There are newer versions out. This is like a slightly older version that has a voltage readout here on the front, and it has the indicator LED on the back, both of which, okay, this LED on the back and this blue LED display about what the voltage setting is here on the front. Both of those are bright enough to signal airplanes. The newer versions are not quite as bad on that, but the point that I am making here is that you do need to provide your own power supply, and that is going to add to the cost. The two options to buy this product that I will put down below have different options in terms of which power supply you want to include. And of course, you are free to bring in power supplies from other manufacturers and companies as well. Okay, so just keep all of that in mind. I did find the ultraRendu to be a bit sensitive to power supply quality. That does have an impact on sound, and so I will unpack that throughout the course of this video as well. A quick note on that Uptone UltraCap LPS1 power supply that came bundled with the version 1.0 and then I used for a while with the version 1.3. Unfortunately, I can't hold that up to show it to you right now because the DC output jack on that started to get a little bit loose as I had it here, and it eventually did fail. In talking with the folks at Uptone Audio, they believe they can fix it, so it is currently en route to their location to hopefully get serviced and returned to me. So I have some listening there on that UltraCap LPS1 and on this small green computer LPS right there too. And so those are the two power supplies that I will be basing my sonic impressions on when we get to that here in a moment. Okay, so I think that is hopefully sufficient explanation on the power supply situation and why you really shouldn't think of the ultraRendu as just a straight $1,000 streamer. You need to add the cost of a decent power supply in there. And I will also add to that the folks at Uptone Audio, they no longer offer the UltraCap LPS1, the original, or its successor, the 1.1, or is it the 1.2? Something like that. Because they are having problems sourcing the parts, and they are not sure when that will ever be able to come back, or if it will ever be able to come back at this point. But what they did say, the person that I talked to there, it mentioned that another company that they like a lot is Tony Pardo LPSs. So I will link to that down below. They have about a $375 option that again gets the recommendation from the people who make the UltraCap LPS1. So look for that link down in the description below as well. All right. Now, as far as the ultraRendu is concerned, I mentioned, like, again, it does one thing. It accepts an audio stream over your LAN network and spits out a USB audio signal. That's one thing that it does from a hardware sense and all of that. Now, it does offer some flexibility and some options in terms of software because this is compatible with a lot of different streaming protocols, including DLNA, UPnP, NAA, which is the protocol that what is it? HQ Player. There we go. That HQ Player uses, so you can use this with HQ Player as well. It also can mimic AirPlay and do that. It can do Spotify Connect and all of that via a host of different controller apps and all of that. So inside here, and I'll show you the build of the unit in just a moment, but you stick a little micro USB card into the back of the unit here, which has all of the control and software on it and is the brains of the device. And that can come preloaded with like RuneReady, the DLNA streamer, like all kinds of stuff like that. And then there are a bunch of other options that you can access through the web-based user interface on this to download and install other streaming protocol software on it. So even though it's a do one thing and do it well from a hardware standpoint, it offers a fair amount of flexibility on streaming protocols and will work with just, I mean, all of the major players out there and many of the minor players to boot. All right. Now, in terms of signal compatibility, you've got it up and running. It's connected to your favorite software player using your favorite software, your streaming protocol. It can handle PCM files up to sampling rates of 768 kilohertz. It can support DSD streams up to DSD 512 and all kinds of file formats in between there along the way, including WAV, FLAC, ALAC, AIFF, MP3, AAC, OGG, WMA, WMAL, DSF, DFF, okay, all kinds of stuff like that. Okay, and then like Rune, Tidal, Spotify, some of the major streaming platforms out there in terms of the music and all of that, like also compatible. Okay, let's take a quick look at the build of the unit. It is tiny, and again, because of its relatively simple hardware nature, there's not a ton to discuss on that. It comes in this aluminum case with plastic caps on the end here. It's and rubber feet on the bottom. It is very solidly built. Okay, on that, the front looks like that. That is literally all there is to see. Okay, that's the front panel. The back panel gets only slightly more interesting, where we see the RJ45 LAN connection right there. We see the USB Type A output, and we see the DC input jack, which again accepts 6 to 9 volts input. It is not recommended to use all the way up to 9 volts though. Stay comfortably under that. That will cause this unit to heat up quite a lot. There is the USB card slot right here, which again holds the operating system, software, and all of that on there. This is also how you do firmware updates. You cannot just download and install a firmware update on this product. You have to buy a new micro SD card from Small Green Computer or Sonore, which is about $30 US to do to upgrade the firmware to new versions. So keep that in mind as well. For reference, I am running software version 2.9 on both of these. The 1.0 came to me as software version 2.7. I did upgrade that after about a month and a half or so to what I thought was going to be version 2.8, but then when I installed it, it ended up being version 2.9, and that happened just before they announced the release of version 2.9. So both of these are running 2.9 software version. Okay, that's really it though. That's the build. The way that you interact and work with this thing is once you get it powered up and plugged into your network and all of that, and then the USB audio output connected to whatever device you're going to plug it into, you figure out what the IP address is by looking at your network settings and all of that, and then you navigate to that, or instead of looking that up, you can go to a website on there, which, I mean, you've got a quick start QR code sticker right here on the bottom. Go to that. They offer a little search tool on that website, and it will find any ultraRendu devices that you have on your network, give you their IP address, then you can navigate to them through a web browser, any web browser on your PC, on your laptop, on your phone, or anything like that, and then you control it and set it up all through a web-based user interface. All right, how did I use it? I am a Rune convert here. Here in August of 2023, I started using Rune back in like January, and quickly I was just like, yep, this is the way to go. So that's what I have been using. So these have been Rune endpoints in my system. All that you have to do for that is once you get it up and running and connected to your network is to go into that user interface, click on the option that says apps, click on RuneReady, and just tell it to start up, and it, boom, there it goes. Once that happens, Rune found it, no problem, off and running, cake. All right. So with all of that, again, I think we can get into the sound quality of this thing, and it's really good. It's quite amazing. Let me explain why and all of that. Now, test gear is going to take a while. I will name a few key pieces here verbally in this part, but I will rely on links down in the description for test gear, because I have used either the 1.0 or the 1.3 as the source piece here in my system basically since May of 2023, and it's August of 2023. So everything that I have reviewed in that time frame, that is desktop gear anyway, was sourced through the ultraRendu. You've probably heard me use that name a lot on this channel already. Okay, so yeah, most of the time it is fed via USB through either what was my Singer SU2 DDC and then became Singer SU6 DDC, and then various outputs from those devices into my Berkeley Alpha Series 2. This was used while the Denafrips Pontus was here for a while. Wait, was that one here for a while? Maybe not, but the Lampezator Amber 3 was for sure as a DAC. The Vice DAC 204. Let's see, what else has been in here? The Gishelli J2S was a DAC that got used a lot for that. And some of those would have been plugged in direct USB to this as well. Oh, Gustard R26 recently. Some of my amps, like I use my Vioelectric HBA V281 a lot, Headamp GSX Mini a fair amount, the iFi Pro iCAN Signature Edition. Okay. Hi-Fi Susvara and HE1000 SE have made appearances. Focal Utopia, Focal Radiance, the 4 headphones, kind of mid-fi headphones I did over the summer, the Kennerton Yallerhorn GH40, Meze 109 Pro, and the 2 Auroras models, the Australis and the Borealis. Okay, that's just scratching the surface of the different gear for which these would have served here since it's been in here. But again, see links down below for other things that have been used with it. If I have reviewed those things, links to those reviews in there as well. Okay. Sound. So maybe in a little bit more narrative approach to how I normally do this. When the version 1.0 showed up with the UltraCap LPS1, I plugged them in together and plugged everything in, hooked it up to my SU2 at the time and all of that. And up until that point, it's worth remembering that what I had been using was the iFi Neo Stream, which is a $1,300 combo streamer DAC, and I think it even has preamp functionality in it. And I reviewed that, so a link in the description below. And the iFi Neo Stream is a solid-ish device. It had a high enough quality as a streamer slash DDC, because it's got a bunch of different digital output types on it, to convince me that streaming, using streamers was the way to go. Like, it was a superior sound to even like the SU2 at the time, the Singer SU2, plugged USB into my computer. All that, it was a cleaner, clearer sound moving from that to the streamer of the Neo Stream. I plugged in the version 1.0 here of the ultraRendu, pushed play, and it was just like immediately, it's like, whoa. This is another level yet of sound quality above and beyond what the Neo Stream was doing. It was clear, it was obvious like that this thing was playing a different game on a different field, whatever you want to call it. It was sonically superior to the Neo Stream. Quieter background, more resolution, more holographic spatial presentation. Okay, just more natural timbre, less harsh and fatiguing. All of those things, it was there. It was great. It convinced me almost immediately that, okay, this thing was here to stay for a while. It was going to be my primary piece of source gear for a good while. Okay, and I was completely content and happy with it. Version 1.0 used for quite a while. And then again, as I sat down, I was going to review it, and then I was just like, you know what? maybe I need to try to get a hold of the hardware version 1.3 just to make sure that the review is the most up to date. And then the 1.3 came in, and it was just kind of another little wow moment. Like it was maybe not quite as big of a jump as it was from NeoStream to the version 1.0, but going from 1.0 to 1.3, all of those things that I just described about quieter background, more resolution, more holographic spatial presentation, okay, more natural timbre, less harshness, less fatigue, and all of that happened again moving 1.0 to 1.3. Not quite to the same magnitude leap as it was from NeoStream to 1.0, but still noticeable. All right, so I bring that out to say that the sound on this is really excellent. It is the best streaming device I have heard so far. And I've not heard a ton of them, but I've heard a few. And this one is standing head and shoulders above the rest of them. Very neutral. It seems very transparent. I really can't detect that it is adding or subtracting to the perceptive frequency response everywhere. The resolution, it seems astounding. The amount of detail that like my Berkeley Alpha Series 2 DAC is able to pull out and then through the VAIO and then into either the Susvara or the Utopia, original Utopia, which I mean, that would be my most resolving chain on hand at any given time usually. Like the level of detail and texturing that's coming out through that system right there is above anything that I've heard prior, and it's just really wonderful, and it's presented in a really natural, believable way. It doesn't feel forced, it doesn't feel artificial. It's just there. It's just all the detail retrieval, the resolution is very much in service of sounding natural and real rather than just being resolving or textured for the sake of being those things. Okay, so there's that. All of the dynamics and all that are there. Like really, to me, it just seems like it gets out of the way of the signal, like rather few devices that I have heard there. Now, from a perceived frequency response standpoint, I do think the version 1.3 has just a little bit more sub-bass presence, a little bit more rumble to it than the version 1.0. The deep sub-bass just sounds a little bit more full and fleshed out to me from the 1.3 than the 1.0. Okay, so that would be about the only like frequency response change. Now, is that because the 1.0 is pulling it back or the 1.3 is adding it in? Hard to say, but it's just what my ears are picking up right there. Would I have realized that happening listening to both of them like completely separate? No, that really only came out when I compared them as close to A/B as I could do a comparison because they are computer-based devices, so switching them in and out, it takes time. Okay, there's some lag there, but that's the only setting in which I really noticed that difference in sub-bass presence. So if I didn't mention yet, like the advantages the 1.3 has over the 1.3 or the 1.0, excuse me, is the 1.3 has a redesigned USB circuit, which Small Green Computer claims removes redundant components. It has an updated clock buffer, and they say that it gives significantly lower phase noise compared to 1.0. It has a lower impedance or a better voltage regulation on the USB subsystem, and they moved the clock circuit to a new location away from other components on the PCB, which should reduce noise and things of that nature. So my ears tell me that there are sonic benefits to whatever they did moving from 1.0 to 1.3. But I don't need to belabor this too much further, I think, because all I can really do here is praise, sonically in particular. There can be a few hiccups here and there, like every now and like sometimes I would experience like these things would drop off of my network, particularly the version 1.0. I have found that connecting it to my network, version 1.0 initially connects a little bit more smoothly and readily, but it will drop out every now and then, whereas 1.3 takes a couple of tries, 2-3 tries to get my network to see it, but then it's much more stable in its connection after that. And that's my experience on my network where I use a Netgear Nighthawk RAX50 router. And then another Netgear 8-port switch here in my listening room because I've had a lot of streamers in and out trying to compare them. I've got a lot of LAN runs around here. But that's just my experience, and Andrew Gillis at Small Green Computer, when I was talking to him about some of my networking stuff and all of that, he right away said, he says, yeah, that RAX50 is kind of known as a troublesome one when it comes to ultraRendu, using Rune and all of that. So great. So it sounds like those connection issues may be on my end. So that's just my experience. You are not necessarily going to have that much trouble. Just thought I would mention it. But those are like the only downsides to these things sonically. You can influence the sound with the quality of the power supply, as I mentioned. The UltraCap LPS1 sounded really great with both of these before it failed. Okay? It sounded really great. Really dark sonic background. The treble in particular had excellent tonal balance and smoothness and natural timbre to it. It just sounded really smooth and organic, and all of that. The Small Green Computer power supply, still very good. Not quite as clean, not quite as holographic. The treble isn't quite as smooth, so a little bit of harshness and fatigue could creep back in there. All of that, still not a problem. These things still sound excellent off the SGC LPS here, the $189 one. Okay, so this is a great starting point. If $999 is already a reach for you to get one of these, you know, and so this is all you can swing to match it at $189. Don't feel bad about that. It's going to sound amazing, but there is even more performance yet to draw out of these things by going up the ladder in terms of power supply quality as well. So keep that in mind as you are out there shopping around for this, and fingers crossed Uptone is able to fix my LPS1 and get it back to me, because I want to put it back in there. All right. But again, sonically, I have nothing but superlatives to say. The 1.3 sounds utterly amazing. It has locked down the job as being my digital front-end source gear here as a Rune endpoint in my system and for review work. For the time being, it's going to be very difficult. I think it's going to be quite pricey to unseat it. The only thing that I have on hand right now that might compete with it would be the Cord 2 Go, which is basically you have to use that either with the Cord Hugo 2 or the Cord 2U DDC, just because of the way it's made. It's very specific to those use cases where having a standard USB-A audio output here allows you to use it with anything that has a USB input on it, basically. Okay, so it's going to be a very expensive proposition to get a meaningful upgrade over this, I think. So it's going to stay for a while and be my piece of digital source gear. I do think quite highly of it there. The version 1.0, not quite as good as the 1.3. Not surprisingly, it's the older version. Still excellent, still clearly better than the iFi Neo Stream, as I mentioned earlier. And again, you will see these floating around out there used every now and then, because it's good enough to convince some folks to jump up to even higher end things. And if you see one floating around the $450, $500, maybe even $600 price points there, that is an amazing value for the money. I mean, $400, $450, that's not much more than an iFi Zen Stream, and it will way outperform the Zen Stream, okay? Quite readily so. So keep that in mind out there as well. And then, you know, even with one of these Small Green Computer LPSs, that sounds amazing, and that's so much sound for the money. Okay, I'll go ahead and leave it there. Thanks for watching. I am Wave Theory. This has been my review of the Sonore ultraRendu streamer. It does the one thing. It does it really well, and it's going to stay here as my reference piece of source gear, digital source gear, for a while. Okay, so please remember to like if you haven't yet, leave a comment if you haven't yet, subscribe to the channel if you haven't, check out my PayPal and my Patreon so you can support the channel, and as always, enjoy the music.